Alright, guys, here is this is one of the more sad stories that I do have from working at a bar, okay? I was working at a bar, actually, it was here in Texas, okay, and I worked there for perhaps, overall, maybe 5, 6 years. I don't really know. I'm not quite sure. I was kind of always in and out of there, constantly working over the years, doing different roles, mostly bartending. And, okay. So during the course of 1 year when I worked at this establishment, there were three different individuals that, I got to know, okay? And so it all started like this. In the, uh, in the very beginning, okay, I became friends with this server, okay, while I was bartending, and her name was, I will say their name. Her name is Katie, and she was a very nice woman with a son, okay, and I even remember her son's name. I won't say it, but his name is in the Bible, okay, it's one of the books of the Bible. And Katie was a very nice woman, and actually, I personally got along with her very well. Okay, she was, a little older than me, but she was just unbelievably loving, and very touchy. And so was I. We would always just give each other hugs. That was the big thing. Like, she was just always excited to see me behind the bar, and it was always a platonic relationship, absolutely, but there was never any interest in there romantically or anything like that. But, she was, just always interested in starting off seeing me just by giving me a big hug. And, I always remember that about her. And, she just loved talking to me, and she particularly loved talking to me about her son. Okay. And I just wanted to say, okay, she had diabetes, but she was in very good shape for some reason. Okay. She was skinny, and for a 45-year-old woman, she was in fantastic shape. Really, for any woman, she was. And she did get addicted to some drugs. Okay, and I won't even say which it is. Okay, but she ended up actually dying. Okay, she died of some complications in the hospital between the drugs and her diabetes. Okay. And then shortly after that, okay, this is, by the way, one of the most depressing stories many of you may have ever heard, okay? And I'm totally fine, by the way, I just want to say. I think about, dead souls a lot, I do. And I have, and I reconcile with it. So I just wanted to say that, we had another server there at the bar, okay? And, her name was, let's just say, yeah, her name was Bonnie, okay, I'll say their names. And okay, and Bonnie was once again, a very nice woman, okay, and she was engaged to once again a very nice young man, okay, and who I never really got to know, okay, and this is at the same establishment within months, okay, that Bonnie had a terrible headache one day at work, okay, and she actually walked up to me and asked me if I had any specific headache medicine, okay. And I went into the kit at the work, okay, and I opened up what we had, and did have some, but it was not the kind she wanted, okay. She wanted either Advil or Tylenol, whichever one I didn't have, okay. And I don't remember what it was. I think she specifically wanted Advil, and I had Tylenol because I have migraines and I take that. So, she did get some medicine from somebody else. I do believe she may have taken some of mine. I don't know if she actually ingested it or not. Okay, but her headache was so bad that she just left work. Okay, and she was young 21-year-old, actually very attractive, very beautiful girl. Once, like I said, she was engaged to a nice young man. And had been server there for perhaps about a year. And on the ride home, she died. Okay, and she had an aneurysm in her brain. Okay, and after that experience, I did learn. Okay, that the human life is actually extremely fleeting. You do not know, no matter what age you are, no matter what your history is, no matter what your health is, no matter what. Even if you're perfectly healthy and you look just fine, okay? She was skinny and shape, she was nice, she wasn't a smoker or a drinker or any of that, not a drug user, nothing. And so, that was shocking to the whole, all the staff, the management for some reason never really met with us. And, I went to the bar, and our my manager and I were just actually totally devastated, after Bonnie died, right? And I just remember going up to the bar and just like asking the bartender there, just like, give me another one. And she's like, what are you talking about? She didn't even like me. She was like treating me like crap. It was so weird. I was like, I just need another one. I just keep him coming, okay? I was just getting drunk for drunk's sake, right? And gosh, that went on for a couple of days. Honestly, actually, it was just one night that I got drunk at the bar. I think it was the night of or after. I just absolutely just I was like, I'm not going anywhere else. I'm sitting at this bar and I'm getting smashed, dude. I'm so upset about Bonnie dying. I think it was the day she died that I did that. With my manager. Anyways, I was being kind of an overall stupid jerk, just by saying, give me another one or whatever. But she didn't even actually, I don't know. I feel like that bartender could have been a little more compassionate, but she didn't like me to begin with, so it was okay. I was actually upset. I just didn't know what to do. So and then I just here, guys, once again, most depressing thing. Not long after that, okay. I became a manager there, and gosh, we hired a new bartender, and her name was Grace, okay? And Grace was a very attractive young woman, okay? She was perhaps 22 or 23 years old, right? And I was maybe 27 or 28 at the time. I thought she was beautiful. I kind of liked her, I always wanted to kind of like talk to her, maybe, see if she wanted to go out even. But I never asked her that, I never really hit on her at all, actually. I just did not. But overall, I was just I was her manager too, so I just no way, it just nah, I did not. So whatever. And so and I overall I just liked her. I thought she was a really good bartender. She seems like a really nice person too. That was the big thing about Grace, that she was a bartender, and she was, good looking, and, a lot of energy, and, pretty smart, okay? But she was also pretty humble and serious, she was, she wasn't like, I don't know, she was living her life, okay? Look, she rode a motorcycle, okay? And, I even remember her showing up to work one day, I have I got a new helmet with music in it, the Bluetooth music, okay, guys? So just want to say, yes, once again, okay, a few weeks later, okay, she was on her way, I believe, home from work. I can't remember. I don't know exactly what happened. I didn't look into the details, okay? I really did not, okay? All I know is that Grace was, either on or to or from way from work, or perhaps even doing a personal business outside of it, and she got into a motorcycle accident and died, okay? And so, within the space of a year and a half, okay, 3 people, each of which I had interactions with, and just, I think one of them I was their manager, goodness, okay. One of them I was very close with, oh gosh, Katie, man. And, I was always friends with Bonnie. I always said hi to her when I showed up to work. So, I will never forget that, their initials, the KGB, just like the Russian intelligence service, within 1 year, Katie, Grace, and Bonnie, all passed, okay? So, yes, and I always wondered after that, how come our employer didn't take the time to, like, get us all counseling, or, have one of us just stand up and talk about all of our experiences with either or all of them. When Grace died especially, it was like a whisper in the night. Nobody even really knew about it. I had to investigate and find out what was going on. I don't even feel like, it was public knowledge, and a lot of the servers even knew who Grace was, or that she had just died working at this restaurant, in addition to the other 2 women. So, man, working in a bar, and some of these people were young. Like Grace and Bonnie were both very young, okay? I mean, I kind of want to cry right now. I really do. It's so sad, man. It's so sad. So I just, oh goodness, I'm not going to. I know it, but I just, I think about how, nice, all of them were, by the way, and goodness, guys, just, treasure the people that you're with, okay? Treasure your own life, okay? I say give all of your love to God, I do have a book on self-love, but I really don't think that people should be obsessed with loving themselves, I think that self-love is something that's missing in the world, but I think the best teacher, for learning, or having love would be to give all of your love to God, of course, right? That's really my way, but, anyways, guys, I just, pray for the KGB, right? That's what I do. And, overall, blessings to all of you. And, I wish you all a long and happy life. I hope none of this happens to any of you. Okay. And, watch out for other people. Okay. Somebody like Grace, perhaps when she was talking about her Bluetooth motorcycle music helmet, I actually have one too. No, I bought one, and I thought about her when I bought one, I remembered our conversation standing, when she was a bartender, me getting ice for her and refilling her beer and doing stuff for her. I remember conversations that we had, So, gosh, that's just, oh, man, and maybe I should have counseled Grace, maybe as her manager. Maybe I should have said, we're relying on you, okay? That doesn't sound safe. Maybe I should have done this and that. Everybody thinks that, okay? But I treated her like an independent person, somebody that's beyond my advice, right? Somebody that's beyond my counsel, somebody that's beyond my care, okay? Wasn't any of my business to, talk to Grace about anything other than how can I help you do your job better, make it easier, hopefully more fun and engaging for the customers, right? And, she would have been very successful as a bartender here in Canyon Lake. She was an open-minded person, willing to learn, all that. So, goodness. Well, you guys, be careful out there. Treasure the ones that are around you. We'll see you in the next upload, okay?